Welcome, everyone. My name is Stephen Leon, and I'm running for the House of Representatives in Maryland's 8th Congressional District. Today, I have an interview with Bruce de Torres from the American Small Business League. We're going to talk about how we can have an even exchange here of ideas when it comes to small businesses. I was reached out to him last week, and these numbers are staggering. So 99.9% of all small businesses are small businesses. 34.7 million businesses create 98% of net new jobs. They employ almost half of all workers and generates about 44% of GDP. 23% of federal contracts are supposed to go to small businesses, but only 3% of the budget, which is allocated from 1.5 trillion, actually goes there. So this is what this interview is about, and how I can adopt more with small businesses into my platform and learn what's going on here. Bruce, tell us who you are and what the American Small Business League is trying to accomplish, and we can move forward from there.
Certainly. Almost 40 years ago, Lloyd Chapman in California sued with the Freedom of Information Act. First, a request that was denied, and then it went to lawsuit. And he discovered a case with huge discrepancy between what was claimed about an allocation of a big contract to small businesses, and he found out no, a minuscule portion actually went to legitimate small businesses. And for the last 35 years or so or more, he has won over 100 legal battles suing the SBA, the Department of Defense, the Energy Department, NASA, the Space Administration, and many others, fighting for the truth about where did these small business contracts go. And he found the results you just shared with us, that instead of the legally required 23% of all federal contracts going to legitimate small businesses, in reality, something as little as 3 or 4% actually do, and the rest goes to huge corporations, Fortune 500 companies. And like you said, 99.9% of all businesses in America are small businesses with 500 or less employees. Now, I'm going to stop right there and say one of our appeals is to change the definition of small businesses, make it 100 employees or less, because 97% of all businesses in America have less than 100 employees. The average business in America has 10 employees.
Wow.
So it's all skewed to big businesses every way that you look at this. So Lloyd kept having these legal battles to find the truth for all the last many decades. In 2004, he formed this organization, the American Small Business League, continuing the lawsuits, continuing media appearances. He was a media darling in the 2000s. He was on Fox, CNN, NBC. He was quoted and interviewed for the major publications of the country. And during the Obama administration, he reached a tipping point. He was too popular. Every week, congressmen were calling him, talking to him, bringing in. He was in every room in the U.S. Capitol, having meetings with people like you who wanted to develop, wow, how do we turn this around? But again, like I say, in the Obama administration, he complained about President Obama too specifically on a Fox News interview. And the next day, his phone stopped ringing. And he's been the victim of major blackballing, blacklisting, censorship. And we continue the good fight with press releases and lawsuits. Simultaneously, and then I'll open it up for more questions from you, Steve, simultaneously through the 90s and every decade since, there have been congressional investigations. There have been investigations by the SBA's own Office of Inspector General, finding the exact same results that I'm talking about. And this is really, it's really unspoken. When you ask most people, what does the SBA do? They'll probably say loans. They give you loans so you can start a business. and a lot of coaching, on how to be successful with your small business. Rarely mentioned is this contracting program. Or a little more background. This all got launched in 1953 with the Small Business Act. It stipulated that 23%. It may have been a different figure. It may have been amended since then, but basically it's from the 1953 Small Business Act that 23% of federal contracts must go to small businesses. It was intended to be, and it would be, the largest economic stimulus plan in our history. It's at our fingertips. If that percentage were fully allocated, that would be about $345 billion going to our small businesses, who, because they're small, would have to create about 2 million new jobs in order to perform those contracts every year. That's 2 million new jobs on top of the handful of millions of new jobs that America creates every year anyway. So we reached out to you, as we're reaching out to all the Democratic candidates we can find for the House and the Senate in 2026. We're emailing them these facts and figures and saying, hey, run on this. We don't see how you could lose. Because in your district, do a Google search. Probably 99.9% of all businesses in your district, and anyone else who's listening, any other candidate who's watching or listening, are probably small businesses.
Yeah, we're having a bit of a catastrophe with Trump. Trump's farce of trying to balance the budget and just, giving his resentment onto the government and that hold us accountable. So we're losing some of our jobs. Mass layoffs is not the way. It's a bit of a corporate cliche, and that seems to be the culprit. I'd have to do some more digging here when it comes to why small businesses aren't getting the money that they should be getting, 23% at least. And we do have a classification system with our industry. So, business entities and things like that. Manufacturing is 500, agriculture is about 100. So that sounds like that we need to revise that. We need to revise what a small business is and what they're entitled to, rather than what we're seeing here. Again, you may not know this number off the top of your head, just something I'm thinking of, like, what is the average size company, small business that is manufacturing?
Well, I don't know that too.
Right. Yeah. No, totally fine. Yeah, that's the idea here, is just to get our facts and data. Like, it's so much easier to, like, when I'm working or drafting any kind of proposal that's novel, new, I will find out that data and I'm able to do that. So yeah, as I just thought I'd kind of pick your brain for a second there. So yeah, it definitely, that was before we had talked earlier, was 2 days ago. You just remember the name of the person from the ASBL that contacted me last week, but I jumped right on this and I was like, okay, it sounds like what I'm thinking. If it's first thing that popped in my head, I just have this preponderance that one of the major problems in our society is corporations and just how they're buying even our politicians and everything, writing our bills and everything like that. But again, I have to be fair. It's like, it's the balance of stuff. It's not just like, just saying that all corporations are inherently evil or whatever. There needs to be some mitigation there. So that was the first thing that popped in my head. This is probably some form of, the corporations are buying up both aisles. It's just the ideologues are, at the forefront of behind that. And really what is happening is you have the candidates on either aisle going after each other, and it's just like a front, they're like pawns for the corporations, and it's just dividing us. It's ridiculous. When most of these, the way that I see this, you peel away the onion and you find that most of these issues are nonpartisan. It's kind of upsetting. But anyway, so I'm running in the Democrat Party, and so then the other thing I was thinking, you just confirmed that now, is that the how we classify what a small business is. So if we need to look at those two areas right there, and if there's more, I'm open to hear it. Then that's something I can draft a bill on, and and there has been previous legislation to address these issues, right?
Yes, that have been introduced. I don't think anything comprehensive has passed.
Right.
In 2009 and then in 2011, I think both by Representative Hank Johnson from Georgia, and I think both called the Fairness and Transparency in Small Business Contracting. They proposed very simple, logical, limits. The 2011 one, the basic point of it was to remove large firms from small business contracting. Why would that be controversial? Why can't more representatives get behind something like that? as you were talking before about who is standing in the way or preventing this or whatever, we have found that more often than not, it's the Pentagon. And they because they also spend the lion's share on contracts because they're such a gigantic part of the yearly expenditures and the yearly budget. And they seem very beholden to the giant corporations that they have been, serving for decades. The Boeing and the Raytheon and the Northrop Grumman. So that's just, for you and anyone else who wants to look into it, on our site, asbl.com, we have years and years and years of these reports posted. I'm in the process of better organizing how things are found on our website, because I want to be able, for every claim I say, I want to be able to send you, here's the document or 2 or 3 or 5 or 10, boom, that establishes this.
Right.
And another word of caution, anyone corroborating what you're hearing right now, depending on how often you search or what search engine you use or what AI platform you use, these numbers are all going to shift and be a little different. I've been on this job now for 3 months, okay, and I'm corroborating everything as I got to know Lloyd over the last couple of years, and so that's that caveat, Steve. This is like tomorrow the number of what the federal budget is, and might change, but more or less it's in this ballpark that 1.5 trillion is spent by the government every year on contracts. That's 26% of its total annual spending. The figure I'm sharing these days is annually the government spends a little less than $7 trillion, 6.8. So 26% of that, 1.5 trillion, is spent on contracts to private firms for goods and services. 23% of 1.5 trillion supposed to go to small businesses, and that's 345 billion. That's what should be going to small businesses. Like I said, tomorrow that figure is going to change on your search. Friday it's going to be a little different, but it's all in this realm of reality, this realm of scandal, if you ask me.
Yeah, I know what you mean when it comes to information bubbles. I'm a student of, that's the cool thing about political science, is it gives me the opportunity to study all the sciences. So when it comes to like anatomy, women's heart beats 10 times more a minute. And I had previously found some other article that said 6 to 8, but it's about 10. And it's like the source of it, and I've been working in the patent world for about 15 years, and there's certain articles and publications, LexisNexis and things like that are reputable. Plus there's that media bias chart that's also my platform. So I also know what you mean when it comes to, so I have 16 new items. Like, sure, Democrat Party, it's the traditional social issues and things like that. And as time goes on, those improve. So there's no need to progress trap some of those things. But the way that my website is set up now, it's just, I don't even use drop downs. It's not even alphabetical. It's just 16 items, and it's kind of tricky for anybody, at least right now. I need to work on my ground game. That's the biggest thing when I get the donations, is getting people out, and balancing. I have a day job, I'm not going to quit that. I have to be able to support myself. So, and so I'm working on a new website format. I've already posted some of the drafts on Twitter or X. So just the way that the menus are set up and just grab you, and it makes because you know what I mean, like these forms, these abstract environments of tabs, and they're a little bit different, and people go to them. It's like, we want things to be narrated as fast as possible and as efficient as possible, so we can move on our day. To learn something new. And you would think something so critical, but with all these different issues, as they have detailed. I mean, like for me, I'm going to need to be able to, articulate these things in an efficient manner. As long as I have experts in my corner. That's the cool thing about what I'm working on, is, evolving these kind of partnerships where I don't need a monetary exchange. I don't need a lobbyist to write my bill. I come from the patent world. I can write a patent. I can do creative writing. I could do some editing, some of the stuff on my social media, just grammatical, whatever nitpicks. But so yeah, I totally get to all that. So what do you think Trump's role is in all this?
Isn't that the $1 million question? because I get feeds from really a diverse, spread of independent news sources, formerly mainstream journalists who've been marginalized because they tell too much truth. And it's my impression is, if I had to bet, I would say he's more of an opportunist than anything else. But then again, I could range on that side, really smart and experienced people who think he means well. He's just not that smart in terms of implementing things. I think you discussed at the top, what's like incongruous about, or just ineffective, or just plain ridiculous about what he's doing. So he gives me agita. That's an Italian word. And I pray for the country because he's so much less than the best we've ever had. But we have to pray for him because he's got so much influence over our lives. I just think it's really upsetting to see him just bumble and fumble and seemingly make it up as he goes along. That's what I see. What do you think about it?
Well, I think he's appeasing corporations. When he was, he's always done that. He's waffled on things. How he went after Kamala Harris, calling her, communist. And I mean, that's, by definition, that's the where people don't own private property. That's maybe, the narration of social programs wasn't done effectively. But, even her, there was, what was it? What labor union was it that decided to is it the Teamsters that decided to support neither one of those candidates because they are supporting the corporation, and they're using that money, right? That's a big part of my platform, is to mitigate big money with the model legislation from Represent Us, the American Anti-Corruption Act. So that's really, yeah. So getting the big money, corporation business. Again, I come from that patent world, and I have a small business myself, so I understand business entities, sole proprietors, LLCs, B Corps. That's what I have. So I have stock, right? I'm putting all that stuff on hold. And but there's with B Corps, there's that balance of it has to benefit. It's a benefits corporation. It has to benefit society and the environment. So that's a really cool thing. And still have stock. So that's a really cool. That's what in the last 10 years, more and more companies, more and more states are offering that designation for business entities. So, but the idea of corporations goes all the way back to Friedman, where just profits over everything, right? Profits over everything, if it's the environment or if it's society, and this whole deregulatory ideologue that the right has adopted and evolved to, which doesn't really make sense if your positions are fiscal responsibility from the right, and kind of putting the face on that being Nixon, right? Who was the first president. He started the EPA, you know what I mean? And then slowly just kind of do the opposite while the left is kind of seeking more regulation for certain things. The imbalance of the two, you know what I mean? So it's like regulation is natural in the universe, in our bodies, in industry, and sport. And without that, even rocks have the predetermined thing about in physics that make them rocks. You know what I mean? We can manipulate that, sure. So, but if the cosmos, if the life didn't have that, then there would be nothing. Things wouldn't exist. If you know enough about physics, it's not just so black and white. You know what I mean? It's like you could use a yin yang, but it's not perfectly balanced. There's a little bit of infinity. I don't even want to get into it. I'm going on a tangent.
No, I love all that. If we had a longer time.
Yeah. We've already been at this
about all that stuff, but I know we have an agenda here, so yeah.
Yeah, so really, that's my thing about Trump's role. Fine, corporations make money, but you know what I mean. Executives get paid too much, and that's a big thing to do with price gouging, which was natural after COVID, but at 30% more than it should have been because of executive pay. That's the thing about it, is that corporations and executives keep getting more and more money, and we can only print so many dollars, otherwise it devalues. So, and the people are getting less and less and less. And small businesses is definitely one of the major. I work for a small business in Alexandria. I always keep that impartial. We have 30 employees. That's a law firm, so there's no stock or anything. It's an LLPC. So we don't have stock or anything. So still, you know what I mean? It's and I don't know what kind of beside the point of any kind of grants or funding, but loans. But I get that. So It's always been tradition of the United States to invest in its business. The committee, the House Committee on Energy and Commerce is the oldest. It's the first, the original. So that makes a lot of sense. We've always done that, but how much are we investing, and where is it going? You know what I mean? That's the important thing. And if it goes unchecked, we have problems like this. We have hypocritical incumbents, as you know anything about congressional stagnation. There's like a 98% reelection rate for that, and it's just. But look at the polls. Look at the polls where people are on the congressional approval. It actually was the best under Clinton. It hits almost 40 points, but ever since then, it pretty much averages at 30. So everything to our incumbents' faces were nice, but then collectively we get together and we're giving them a 30% out of 100. That's a failing grade. So yeah, I mean, I pretty much, I would really like to learn more and work with you guys. And I'm working with Pause AI. I'm working with there's this new thing, the taxation of big data, and other organizations where again, that's a cool thing. This is what I set out to do, where it's evolving, where I don't need monetary exchange. I don't need to be lobbied to you can listen to lobbyists and things like that, you know what I mean? But I don't need to have that benefit from it. The conundrum is that the money that they would contribute to get your face out there, and then the media will take a hold of it. And there's definitely aspects of plutocracy in media, not all of it, so those are my challenges. I don't know, we've been on this 20 minutes. We don't have to go the full 30. Is there anything else that you want to include?
No, maybe just recap the obvious, Steve. We want to inspire a candidate like you to study these facts and figures that I've brought to you so that you reach an internal tipping point. Like, wow, this is as important as my other top 5 or 6 things that I would tell my district as a reason to send you to the House, so that you could work on this, and this, and also this. It's, you're not going to make it your only plank or the tip of your spear, but we think that it's that real, it's at our fingertips. It would make that much of an impact. And then, personally, it'd be nice for us to stay in touch, because I'm a student of American history and a student of electoral politics. And I'm also a professional communicator, not only as a marketer, but as a performer and as a past actor. And the whole package of how does a candidate make himself most appealing in all the vectors that influence a human being, from how you speak, how you look, what's on your website, because I come from a sales and marketing background. So if you want to, brainstorm about all those things, I would welcome those kind of conversations too. So that's kind of just bonus on top of this core message from the American Small Business League, ASBL.com. Learn all about it.
No, you're right. Equal priorities. That's my thing. Some people are single issue voters. They don't always know that. But for me, my position, since things have gone so unchecked for so long, I'm on top of all this stuff. So climate change is my number one thing. But yeah, I would definitely like to hear more and work with you again, just what I do with other organizations also, and follow up. We've got plenty of time here, which actually, no, we don't have much time before the 120th Congress primary, which is next June after this year, June 2026. So that just flies right by. So yeah, I'd definitely like to do another show and see where we're at, and I can draft up some things and kind of get your...
And as you look at the material I've sent, whatever you can't find corroboration for, I'm going to be organizing it better at my end. Ask for what you want. Bruce, can you clarify that? Bruce, do you have a better source for this? If you did stuff like that, I'd be very, very happy to, help as much as I can.
Yeah, it's all about, listening to the experts, finding the problems, and you can have the solution. And in my situation, I think it's the ground game, but I could always learn more when it comes to... I do well, for, coming from an unknown, I guess, into the world here in politics. So hopefully that's refreshing enough for people. But that ground game is definitely what I need. And then I can learn as I go. So whatever help I can get there without being hypocritical to my platform would be great. So I'm going to go ahead and close the show off. And I want to thank everyone for sitting tight and watching it. And thank you.
Thank you.